Taking a look at Sarah Winchester's home really does give you the feeling that the poor woman had to be haunted by something. If not ghosts, then maybe her own demons. When you look at parts of her life, like how her family began to fade in a matter of years, you can easily believe that she had been cursed as well. But if we look deep enough, would we really find a cursed, haunted woman? Or a simple old lady who didn't really do much except live her life, a little eccentrically, yes, but in no way resembling what the rumors say? Let's take a look at Sarah and her famous Winchester Mystery House to find out. Are you ready? Then take my hand, hold it tight, and let's walk into the darkness together. Sarah Lockwood Pardee Winchester was born on September 1st, 1839, in New Haven, Connecticut, into a middle class family. Her father Leonard was a carpenter and woodworker, and although he wasn't exactly rich, he could afford to give his children a good education, complete with tutors that could equip them with the skills that not everyone could afford at the time. These included playing different instruments and learning other languages. Sarah, or Sally as she was affectionately called, grew up to be a lovely young woman who managed to win the love of their neighbor's son, a handsome young man with a caring and sensitive soul, named William Wirt Winchester. He also happened to be the heir to the Winchester repeating arms fortune. In 1862, at the age of 25, Sarah married William. In 1866, they had a daughter and named her Annie after William's sister, who had passed away 2 years earlier. Unfortunately, Annie was sick with marasmus, which is basically when you're malnourished and simply don't have the calories or nutrients for your body to continue to function. This happened because Annie was unable to digest food, and sadly, a month after her birth, she passed away. Of course, Sarah was heartbroken, but unfortunately, this was just the start of her tragedies. 3 years after Annie, Sarah's father passed away, and although they had a somewhat small reprieve from the heartaches where Sarah had the chance to visit California with William and made some happy memories with her husband, in 1880 tragedy began to strike again. In the span of a year, Sarah lost her mother, William's father Oliver, and ultimately William himself, who had been ill with tuberculosis for some time. He, of course, left her with a fortune to rival many. Then in 1884, Sarah's oldest sister Mary passed away as well, and she herself began to suffer from rheumatoid arthritis. Now, this is where the Winchester legend begins, and I'm going to tell you that version, and then I'll go back to facts that have been surfacing so that you can decide what to make of the rumors yourself. So, it's said that in her grief, Sarah sought out a medium in order to make contact with her departed family. Spiritualism was a big thing at the time, and many wealthy women and even some men used to seek out mediums to perform seances. It was seen as something normal at the time, with there even being magazines dedicated to it and to advertising the mediums. It is said that Sarah found one by the name of Adam Kuhn. Now, the main rumor states that Adam told Sarah that she was cursed due to all the death that the Winchester rifles had caused, and that she would be the next one in line to die. The only way to prevent this was to move to the south and build a house for the spirits of those that were killed by the rifles so they could dwell. One whose construction would never cease so that all the spirits could fit in it. There are other variants of the story stating that Adam had performed a seance and it had been William himself who had, through the seance, told Sarah to build the house. Yet another says that Sarah had already been plagued by the ghosts since before she moved from New Haven and had decided to move to try to escape them. But they followed her, so she built these ever changing mazes in the form of a mansion in order to confuse them and to hide from them. Regardless of the reason, Sarah did move south to San Jose, California, and a year later, in 1886, she bought an 8-room farmhouse in Santa Clara Valley along with 45 acres of land. She named it Llanada Villa. Once she had done this, she immediately hired carpenters and began construction. She actually hired 2 different architects and fired them almost immediately after. She then decided to overlook construction herself, and with the help of nightly seances, where the spirits would guide her and tell her what to do next, she began to design the house herself. Sarah continued to buy the properties around her as they became available. At its peak, the mansion grew to have 500 rooms and 7 stories. That's actually a fact, not just a rumor, even though it sounds like one. Anyway, Sarah supervised each room as it was done, adding elegant touches to each, such as stained glass windows, carved wood on the walls and ceilings, and a form of wall covering known as lincrusta, which made them look as if they were made of leather or metal. She also filled these rooms with imported and expensive furniture because, let's face it, just because you live in a maze that's infested with ghosts, it doesn't mean that you can't live fabulously. In fact, they say that the construction alone cost her around $5 million at the time, which is more or less equal to $71 million today. Sadly, many of these lavish rooms wouldn't be kept for long. In an attempt to keep her maze ever-changing and continue to confuse her tormentors, she would often tear down rooms and begin construction all over again. Now, within her maze, there are doors that go nowhere, trap doors, windows that are barred and indoors, staircases that lead to nowhere and end at ceilings of rooms. The story also says that Sarah lived in fear, terrified that if she stopped construction, the spirits would find her and she would perish. There are also rumors that people could hear eerie, ghostly music coming from the mansion at night, and also claim that Sarah would have lavish parties for the spirits and serve them exquisite meals on dishes made of solid gold that she kept hidden in her safe when not in use. They also claimed that she had a strange fascination with the number 13 and built the house to have things such as 13 windows in one room and 13 rooms in certain areas. So, Sarah continued the construction and actually outlived everyone in her immediate family until it was only her and her sister Belle who were left. Eventually, in 1920, Belle died as well. On September 5th, 1922, at the age of 83, Sarah did pass away in her mansion from heart complications. They say that her spirit became trapped in the house, forced to wander the maze she herself created for all of eternity. Now, just 9 months after her death, the mansion became an attraction for curious tourists who wanted to see the oddity for themselves. The home was actually appraised and found to only be worth $5,000 because of the crazy construction it had. However, the 68 acres that came with the house did have some value, especially 32 of them that had apricot and prune trees planted on them. It was sold at auction to a man named Thomas Burnett, who paid $135,531.50 for it. He rented out the house to a former theme park worker named James Brown and his wife Mimi. They played off of the legend and embellished it, created billboards, and got Mimi to give tours around the house. Now, there are, of course, rumors of people claiming that they have seen things or heard stuff in the house, and I will definitely get to that. But for now, let me explain the facts that contradict the legend. So, the part about all of the deaths in her family and her arthritis is true. In fact, some claim that the truth is there was never a medium and that Sarah never believed in such things. They claim that the true reason that she moved to San Jose was because her doctor recommended for her to move to a warmer climate, and that, combined with the happy memories she had once made there with her husband, is what prompted her to choose California as her new home. It's also true that Sarah bought the two-story farmhouse with the 45 acres and that she continued to buy all the property around it piece by piece. But being her father's daughter, Sarah inherited his love for Victorian architecture. She even subscribed to multiple magazines that were dedicated to building and remodeling. And this is what those who are skeptical believe led her to take on the role of architect, per se, and self-design her dream home. Sarah was also known to be extremely picky and was said to have wanted each room to be exactly the way she had envisioned it. And no matter what level of completion the construction of a room was in, if she felt that something wasn't what she wanted or changed her mind about something, the room would be torn down and reconstructed, which is what is supposed to explain the maze like feel and the strange staircases that were built to reach certain rooms or areas that now have no use, or the doors that had been meant to open into rooms inside of the home, yet now open into nothing but a fairly scary drop. In fact, the San Jose News, a local paper, printed an article in 1897 that stated that a 7-story tower had been torn down and rebuilt in the house 16 times. This was part of the reason why people claimed that construction never ceased and that there was work being done on the house 24/7 and around the clock. The other part was that it simply wasn't true. Sarah suffered from constant fatigue and would take construction breaks regularly, sometimes even for months, which considerably slowed down her construction. She even decided to take a whole year off in 1915 to host her relatives who had traveled to San Jose to attend the Panama Pacific International Exposition, which lasted for 9 months. There is a bell tower in the home that people claimed was built to summon the spirits, but others claim was simply built to summon the workers to start work. The ghostly music people heard at night was Sarah playing the pump organ, one of the instruments that she had learnt to play as a child. She had a habit of sneaking into the grand hall and playing it when she couldn't sleep at night to pass the time. In 1906, there was a major earthquake in San Francisco, which took around 3,000 lives. It also wreaked havoc on homes and buildings in the area, including the Winchester Mansion. That 7-story tower that was built and knocked down again and again collapsed. Several chimneys collapsed. The third and fourth stories of the mansion were wrecked, and a whole wing of the house was completely destroyed. The workers cleaned the debris and made the mansion safe again, but the construction was stopped from that point on. Although Sarah owned other properties, she chose to buy a houseboat and live in it for the rest of her days, which would also contradict what the main legend claims, that if she ever stopped construction, she would perish. However, I do find this one bit odd. Although she had completely moved out of the mansion, a few days before her death, Sarah chose to visit it and ended up dying in it during that visit due to heart complications. Maybe, maybe, the spirits found an opportunity to claim her life as she did. Who knows? Now, after Sarah's death, her safe was eventually opened, and there were no gold plates found in it. There were only personal mementos and a lock of hair from her daughter's head. The funny thing here is that the people who actually knew her relatives, employees, and friends, never claimed to have seen any of this. On the contrary, her staff always said when asked that she wasn't superstitious, she had zero interest in seances, and that they never saw any proof of them ever being held in the mansion. They also talked about what a wonderful, caring, and sweet woman she was. She actually proved this even farther when she died by making sure that every single one of her employees was named as beneficiaries in her will. And as for the medium Adam Kuhn, well, historians have pored over all of the records, magazines, and directories that had mentions of mediums, and they've never found a single trace of one with that name. Of course, that doesn't mean that he couldn't have existed and had just been unlisted for some other logical reason and just not shown up. But it does lend credibility to the idea that Sarah was just an eccentric old woman who loved architecture and had more money than she knew what to do with. Also, her so called fascination with the number 13 seems to also have been made up to add to the legend, since it's said that in truth, all of the additions that end in the number 13 were done after her death, not while she was living. Okay, so now on to the house itself and the spooky stories of what people have experienced there. The house is 24,000 square feet with 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 160 rooms, 40 of those being bedrooms, 52 skylights, 44 stairways, 47 fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, which seems like a low number to me considering the amount of rooms, but okay, 6 kitchens, an aviary full of tropical birds, 1 finished grand ballroom, and 1 that was in the works. Many of the rooms have a daisy motif in their woodworks as an homage to Sarah's niece Daisy, who she was very close with. There are other decorative pieces worth mentioning, such as a large brick fireplace with a window on each side of it that contained quotes from Shakespeare's Richard II and Troilus and Cressida. Sarah was also well ahead of her time, being one of the first people to have an annunciator, which was a very early and rustic type of intercom to call on servants, a type of sprinkler system that would carry excess water from the indoor garden to her outdoor one, forced air heating, elevators, and running hot water. But let's face it, as impressive as all that is, we're here for the good old ghost stories, right? So I can tell you that the Winchester Mystery Mansion is said to be one of the most haunted places on Earth, with visitors and tour guides alike claiming that they've felt, heard, and seen strange things, such as cold spots or temperature drops throughout the mansion. They hear footsteps, whispering, murmuring, sighing, and other odd sounds. There are also doors and windows that slam on their own. People feel like they're being watched as they walk around the mansion, and have even said that they can smell someone cooking in the kitchen, which of course hasn't been used in a very long time. Some claim they've seen a shadow belonging to a woman dressed in Victorian-era clothing, and there are also some who claim that they've seen ghostly workers pushing wheelbarrows into one of the mansion's living rooms and then suddenly vanishing. Now, of course, the mansion is open to the public, and for about $42 per adult, at the time which this video was made, you can take the tour and not only see the beautiful architecture and listen once again to everything I've just told you, but you can also try to experience some of the supernatural occurrences for yourself. I'd love to hear about it if you ever do. That's it for today. Let me know in the comments what you think about the story and if you'd ever visit the mansion yourself. Also, let me know where you're from if you found me through a bill. You can help my small channel grow by sharing it with others who love creepy haunted mansion stories just like us. And remember to please like if you liked and subscribe if you want more. See you next time.